All right, it being 7 p.m. on Wednesday, June 20th, 2018, I'd like to call the Lisle Library District Strategic Planning Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Here.
Richard Flint.
Here.
Jay Fisher.
Here.
Thomas Hummel.
Here.
Liz Sullivan. Here. Emily Swistak, absent. Longri Wang.
Here.
Elizabeth Hopkins.
Here.
Will Savage.
Here. A quorum being present, we'll move on to item 2 on the agenda, which is opportunity for visitors to speak. Looks like we do not have any visitors with us this evening. So we'll move along to item 3, which is the approval of the minutes of the May 2nd, 2018 committee meeting. Those minutes were included in your packet.
I'd like to propose some, more questions than proposed changes, but they might wind up as changes. In the roll call for last month's meeting, 3 committee members, Tatiana, Beth, well, 2 committee members, Tatiana and Beth, are not grouped with the others. And I think that we ought to have all the committee members together in a group. Now, Chris was not a committee member, so I can imagine he would be also present. But I think, at least for the future, all 11 committee members should be indicated under roll call without a separation.
Any other comments?
There's one
on
other
Richard's point. Okay.
There's one other, and that is under the May 2nd notes, 3rd line, below are the words that were used to define the terms headings. I don't think that's correct. I think what we agreed to was that the list of terms beneath the headings shed light on the headings or were associated with them, but they weren't definitions. For example, for diversity, accessibility doesn't define diversity, but it's what comes to mind when we discuss diversity. So I'd like to propose a change to say below are the words that are associated with the terms headings.
These aren't minutes.
Yeah, I don't think that document, Richard, is part of the minutes, but I think we can
I still think
certainly we can change it going forward.
That's all I got.
So is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes as amended.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All right, do a roll call.
Richard Flint.
Aye.
Jay Fisher.
Aye.
Thomas Hummel.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Longri Wang.
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye.
Elizabeth Hopkins.
Aye.
Will Savage.
Aye. All right, motion passes. The minutes of the May 2nd, 2018 meeting are approved. Item 4 is facility discussion. At our last meeting, we spent a lot of time talking about terms and talking about focus areas. And at this meeting, we're going to dive down into one of those specific focus areas, which is quite large, which is facilities. I know the director has prepared a PowerPoint and some information on that, so this time.
Yes. I'm sorry, I made copies. As Tatiana just go around passing the copies, I'm just wondering, so what's the structure of how we should be discussing this? Are we going to try to every meeting or pick a focus area? What is the overall process? Do we have something in mind how we're going to tackle this?
Well, when I was talking with Tatiana, we thought that this is such a big area that we needed to focus this meeting on that. But going forward, we might be able to include more than one focus area, but since this one was so large that it deserved its own meeting. So I think going forward, I don't think we need to spend one meeting on every focus area, but we felt like this one did deserve its own meeting.
Okay, so the process going forward for the future ones is we'll just pick a few areas, that'll be the focus, and then you come out of this discussion, each of those focus areas, you'll come up with the goals and objectives as a result? Or what is the outcome you expect?
I'm not sure. In our discussions that we thought we would come out of tonight's meetings with the goals and objectives for facilities, but at least come up with more focus of this is where we want to focus in terms of facilities. Mm-hmm. But I think moving beyond that, when we do the other focus areas, that would be my goal, is to come out of the meetings with specific goals and objectives, if not finalized, and at least draft language.
All right, thanks.
Shall I?
Yes.
Okay. Hey,
Tom, would you mind hitting the lights just a little bit on this side maybe, just so we can, I don't know if that's gonna take out everything or not.
That's good.
Ooh, that's a bit.
Oh, wow.
Is that okay?
Mhm.
Okay. So as Jay mentioned, it should be okay, Beth. Tonight we're gonna focus on the second half of the survey we all took. You have copies of the survey regarding the ranking areas in and around the facility. We'll pick up where we left off last meeting. But before moving on, I do want to make mention that your rankings in the survey are definitely fluid. They may change after tonight's discussion, and that's probably a good thing because the more information you receive, sometimes you make different decisions after you receive that information. So what I've prepared tonight is a presentation that corresponds with our survey. If you remember, the facility areas mentioned in the survey came from our second meeting. We used like the flip chart. We pulled out some areas in and around the building that need attention, or they're facility concepts that deserve broader discussion. So a lot of the ideas that came of that meeting came from our community engagement in 2017, that project, and then from years past, data from years past, reports and surveys and studies from years past. And then the goal for tonight is going to have, I'm hoping for a very engaging discussion about our current and then our future needs, and then planning a path forward to achieve those facility goals. Not necessarily listing the goals, but thinking about it. Because as you all know, our strategic plan is more than just the facility. We have other things to tackle, but this is, as Jay also mentioned, a very unique category. It's one we've discussed over 6 years now. So I think it's time to really focus on the facility and come to some general agreements about our needs as a library, as a neighborhood information and instructional center, and as a cornerstone institution in the community. So we won't be making concrete choices tonight, but I would like to leave this meeting with a sense of how members feel about the concepts we're going to dive into. So I do want to hear from everybody, please. I just want to do a quick review of our 4 focus areas. So we talked about organizational culture, advocacy, outreach, and awareness, technology, and facility. And then we do have some definitions that went underneath each category. I know Richard disagrees with that term, but these were, I'll use the term you use, enhancements or what word did you use to describe these words?
I've forgotten. I probably said associated with. Or
Sure,
like.
sure. I mean, they're words we thought aided the category. But we also had some other building blocks. So we had diversity and data-driven decisions. And these building blocks will color a lot of what we discuss across the board category-wise. So, such as the term efficiencies, that will apply to many categories moving forward. Okay. And then we have our facility survey. We all have that in front of us. You were asked if you thought if a certain area was either important or central, if you were unsure, or if you felt this area was unimportant or not a goal for us as a library. And then after taking the survey, some members had questions about specific areas here, like what's a media lab? What do we define a media lab? What is RFID exactly? So I'm guessing that some of the unsures in this column are due to not really knowing a lot about what we're talking about, or that needed more explanation. So I'm hoping to provide examples tonight in this presentation. So I'm going to go through this list with a slide for each mention. So our first mention is the YS bathroom.
Tatiana, can I ask
Sure.
you a question? So we're talking about today facility. We'll only talk about physical facility. You know, for example, there's an intermingling like IT infrastructure. It could be both software and hardware. But so for example, IT infrastructure, we're just going to be talking under umbrella of technology. But today we're talking about the physical.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Facility.
Okay. So the first mention is YS bathroom or a family bathroom. There are all kinds. So there's different seating levels, as you can see here, for both children and adults. There are restraining chairs or safety chairs. There are also different types of changing tables. We have a photo here showing adequate maneuverability within a family restroom. and then multi-level sinks for either wheelchair use or for little ones use. And then we also have just another version here, another configuration with more bars, different changing tables, sinks, and the like. And there's all kinds of variations of what a family restroom can look like and provide. Will, do you want to add to your experiences upstairs regarding the family? Because this was the top, I think, agreed upon, or at least consensus upon idea.
Yeah, it is at this point astonishing that we don't have facilities upstairs for e-services. People often question whether or not I know what I'm talking about when I tell them we don't. We've had instances where parents have literally given us their babies at the desk because they have to take their toddler down to go to the bathroom and they don't have a chance to strap up their other children. So it's more than a hassle. I would say that's probably one of our bigger issues upstairs with people with strollers. You don't have time to bring the stroller downstairs. When your 3-year-old has to go, they have to go now. And in the same sentence, sometimes they don't make it, and then my staff has to clean up the carpet when they don't make it. So this is something that's a long time coming that really is, like I said before, I'll reiterate, astonishing that we don't have facilities upstairs for our patrons. Yeah.
Any other points or comments regarding a family
There
type bathroom?
There is a restroom upstairs for staff, though. Right?
There is a restroom upstairs for staff. Go ahead.
No, you finish.
I was going to say, it is way back in the middle of our office, and there is no way that patrons using it would lead to many, many different issues.
Yeah.
In the current configuration.
But I guess where I was going to go to is, so there is some infrastructure like plumbing. So I mean, that's at least one good news if we go that route is, it's because I mean plumbing's really expensive. So at least since there's plumbing, at least some pipes going up there, that's a big help, because if we had to start from scratch, that would probably be really expensive. It still probably will be expensive, but at least some of the infrastructure's in place. So.
Any other comments about family bathroom? How about downstairs?
Absolutely. We do get questions for that as well on our floor. And I wanted to also add, Will mentioned the parent with the toddler and the baby. You know, I know parents that won't go to the grocery store with their 2 children because it could be too stressful. So I wouldn't hate that anyone would feel like they couldn't come to the library because there's not a comfortable situation in which they could get their kid to the restroom or change their baby.
Any other comments?
And again, we're using a step stool for the children to use the sink in the bathroom here in the lobby.
Are you talking about the multi-level sinks?
Right.
Yes, that would be.
Yeah, I've been to the Park District, they do that too. I don't know if it's good or bad or indifferent.
Okay. We'll move on to the next slice of this category is in the mention of having a family bathroom, there's also mention of all gender or inclusive restrooms. So the trend is to have a series of private lavatories with sinks. This is happening in libraries as well as other institutions and department stores. So there's a series of private lavatories with sinks inside. And then as you see here, here's the configuration. After a patron leaves the lavatory, there's a wash area with an exit to the floor. So this concept is, like I mentioned, in libraries and hotels and department stores. Of course, when you have this kind of setup, there's also a family-sized bathroom or a handicap stall available near this series of private use restrooms. So what do we think about this concept? And has anyone ever experienced it?
At the time, I didn't realize it, but if that's what's going on, maybe it was, because there was a hotel up in Rosemont. They had something similar, but I just thought, wow, these are nice restrooms. But I think we could probably take care of that with like the family bathroom, or like where, you know, it could kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, whether it's families or all gender. So like, I don't know, because I don't know, with all those stalls. I don't know if we need that many stalls either, but
I mean, that's just
Yeah,
an idea.
yeah,
And
but-
again, all of these photos that I'll
Yeah.
be sharing with you, simply examples. There are many different configurations.
so I think it probably just like 1 or 2 family bathrooms, because that could kind of, takes care of the families with the young kids, and then, then the for more inclusive restrooms as well, so they could utilize that as well, so.
Any other comments? This is a hot topic.
I like what you have here. I like the mix of family, traditional maybe, and the all gender inclusive. I think that's a lot of non-binary people don't have kids, so they might not be comfortable with a family bathroom situation.
I'm very supportive of this, and I think this is the trend. And you asked if anyone's had this experience, and I will say the ALA conference last year in June had all gender restrooms, so I have had that experience. Yes.
Like a line
With-
outdoors.
Yes, exactly. And I will tell you, the line moved a lot faster, so it was very beneficial.
Are we talking about this one downstairs, this one, the lobby, you think about?
We're just talking about it as a
Or in
concept.
general,
As a
concept.
concept.
Well, part of this, I mean, I think I think those are good ideas, but I think it comes to what give you, we have limited resource, what give you the most value. I'm not sure, I don't know whether this typical like inclusive bathroom is more expensive than a traditional family, but I think in terms of our need base today, I think we more urgently need like a bathroom upstairs for youth. That's kind of my view.
Any other thoughts? Well, there's the possibility that it might take less space. So I would like to maybe hear more about it.
Okay.
The other thing I'd like to do, I volunteer at places that have a lot of diverse groups coming in. For instance, Loaves and Fishes. And they've actually combined their employee bathroom with public bathrooms because it allows them to build bigger and then have the separate family right next door to it. And I think if we're comparing ourselves, in a way we are a nonprofit because, we're not here to make a profit. So if we're comparing ourselves to organizations that have a totally diverse population, these are all people who are what we call full food challenged people, families. And if the employees there can manage to share a bathroom in order to serve the greater good, I would think we should consider that here too.
So I'm super uncomfortable with that because having a staff member alone in a bathroom with a child potentially is a big issue. I would not be comfortable going in the bathroom upstairs if that were my bathroom, if that's what the children are using. I've worked with kids since I was 13, and since day one slammed into my head is I can never be anywhere alone with a child if there's not view, and there will be no view into the bathroom. And that would make me as a professional and an adult extremely uncomfortable, at least in youth services.
And you would know that better than I would, but I would hesitate to take the idea off the table because there might be somebody who's got, who does bathrooms for a living, who has a creative way to accomplish both.
I mean, unless there's a viewing window, I would have to go in there with John.
Yeah.
Basically, John and I would have to go to the bathroom together so that there was another staff member there in case a child walked in.
Probably wouldn't work in youth services, I would actually agree with Will, but I don't know, maybe downstairs, maybe, but upstairs.
Children use the downstairs bathroom too.
No, I understand, but.
I think we're just talking about concepts and design.
Yeah.
And whether or not we're open to a new concept like inclusive and individual restrooms as opposed to the binary choice. I think that's what we're talking about.
The one concern I would have with the individual bath, like how you think the one on the upper left is, if I understand it right, is one that might be getting a little too fancy, but the bigger issue is, I remember even in high school, which I didn't care for. I know they didn't even have doors on the stalls, which I don't know if they have that now. I don't know if it's changed over time, but I think that's so kids weren't smoking which I mean, I figure there's other ways to do that. But I mean, you know, you do read occasionally in the paper, whether it's a department store or I think even a library has had it. Someone in Chicago where somebody's overdosed on heroin. So I don't know if I want to have it individualized that much, like for privacy, in case someone, you know, is doing something.
I think there's different types of doors, or some that have more of a
space
at the bottom, but they are a little bit more private. Okay, we should move on. There's a long list.
Yeah.
Is everybody okay with moving on? All right. The next area we're going to talk about is group study space. And the trend in libraries is to have a wall of rooms for study space, glass walls usually, like you see here. Of course, they come in a variety of dimensions for varying group sizes, some having technology capabilities, as you see up here. Underneath, you see the photos with the white borders. Those are our group study spaces here at the library, except for the photo with the kids on the right is upstairs in youth services. They don't have study rooms upstairs. They do have open area with tables. So what do we think about this trend of like walls of study cubes in varying sizes? Most libraries now have that type. I'll just mention that we have 2 on the adult floor that's right down by fiction, and then the second image is in the reference area. So those are the 3.
So at work, we just did this called workplace transformation. Basically, we knocked down the traditional conference rooms. We have different sizes with different shapes and different furnitures. So they're like focus rooms where you just have typically one person with a desk and a chair. Then you have meeting spaces where you can sit maximum of 3 or 4 people, of course with different equipment, and they have a bigger conference room, 6 and plus. So we kind of found out in the past we have a problem booking conference rooms because it's always very limited. Actually, we went to this what we call workplace transformation. We actually have more rooms available now. It's easier to find places to meet up. The conference doesn't book very much. So I think overall conceptually having different sizes of the study rooms is actually create more opportunities to be able to use the space at more, I would say, more efficiently, at least in my workplace experience.
I'd like to show, and Liz actually suggested I show some areas around our building. Last time she and I spoke, I was talking about some kids in the aisles. So some of these photos actually depict that. We've had kids pull tables to the wider area over near administration. And then we've had some teens sit along the teen book wall, as you can see. And then to the right, you can see teens in the smaller group study room, and then a couple of kids on a bench in an aisle studying. Now I want to mention this is not always the case. This is a snapshot in time and different times, but this does happen, I have to say, obviously, but it's not all the time. So maybe staff can speak to some of the times that this has happened.
Yeah, can I comment on that? I mean, the teens in the like sitting in the stacks, that's usually finals week is when we're super busy. However, we do get, I don't want to say complaints, but questions about our lack of study space or study room space on a nearly daily basis. It is so limited, and that's even with multiple groups of people sharing one study room. So what happens is the rooms book up, and then tutors are meeting in the stacks at the tables, which is fine, except they need to speak to one another, and that's a quiet area, and it's disrupting the other patrons. So this is a huge issue.
Especially, oh, sorry, Beth, go ahead.
Oh, as Longry mentioned, one of the things, the problem that they solved was having rooms with different sizes, and that would certainly be a big help because sometimes people are looking, it's 1, 2, up to 6 or more. So we could use our space better. Electricity, being able to plug in the devices is huge. Sometimes we've got cords stretched across, and if the rooms are full, then they're looking for tables. And if the tables are full in the atrium, then they're in the stacks. And that's not where the electricity is. So that seems to be a bigger issue. And then people seem to like the perimeter. They want to be there against the wall and not in the middle. When you talk to patrons, they said, can I go over there, like they're at, like this, they want to sit at the scanner instead. So those are just examples of what happens.
So just so I'm clear, so are you guys like talking like about flexible, like a wall you could kind of put, some similar to this where you would have like a room and you could like, obviously on a smaller scale, but have like a wall like we have here where you can open and close it to create a bigger room? You know
I'm
what I'm
not
saying?
sure, I mean, if you look at this image, these images again up the upper left hand,
Yeah.
I think we're talking about like glass, like against the
Yeah,
perimeter glass
but
enclosed
then or at
areas.
least then maybe my mind got wandering and creative. If there was a way to have it where, just.
The walls can be
Yeah, just so
adjusted.
for like example, like hypothetically, this could be like one.
Could
and then-
divvy up
yeah,
into
but
different-
It could get divvied up into two or whatever the case may be.
I think
So-
that's very creative. I wonder if there's a model we could look at.
The only thing would be the noise, right?
The noise, but
Yeah.
are those, even though you could talk, it doesn't get loud in there, does it, usually?
It can.
It could?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
keep in mind, and I don't want to stereotype by age, but we are kind of getting teenagers up. So if you have a group of
And
young
then,
folk.
but they would probably then be, most likely would probably be if that room was like the larger version of the room instead of divvying it up into two. Would it be something that might,
Well, you can see in the second image that got the sliding doors.
Yeah.
I can imagine there might be an ability to slide the walls
Yeah.
the other opposite way if
Yeah.
you wanted to adjust.
yeah.
I mean,
I think
interesting
there are,
concept.
I think there are pods that become kind of like study carrels that actually can be moved. And I
That might
think
be
that-
nice for upstairs.
Right, and another issue with being able to divide up the rooms, as Elizabeth was talking about sound, there's also, again, lighting and your air and, air conditioning and heating.
That's
So
true.
all of that has to be taken into
Oh,
consideration
sure.
when you're.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to probably have an outlet on that both ends of that room in case it does get divvied up, and same thing with lighting and things like that. And just not to, is there a way, I don't know, when they have finals, is it pretty much are all the schools on the same schedule, or is there a slight difference? Because say if there's a way to even like just book these rooms, or like keep them open so these could turn into study rooms?
We've
done that.
actually had to do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've done that, and it
Okay.
still has spilled over.
Okay.
Do you know, I'm a tutor, and I tutor at Naperville because it's more convenient. And there's a lot of times where all of their rooms are booked as well, and I'm sitting at a table and I'm talking, but I'm talking very low. I mean, I'm very cognizant that I'm in an open area. So as a tutor, I actually expect that. I mean, I must go during their busy times as well. And then secondly, I was wondering, and I asked this at a previous meeting, I don't know what happened to it, but it would be nice to see statistics on current room usage. And, I come in here from time to time, and there's still that one guy who takes up the darn room for all day. He runs his business, and it like seats 6 people. And,
Well, we talked about that, and it's it's first come, first serve, but it's not all for one for
Yeah, so, I
all.
mean, it's
Anyone can walk in there
Yeah.
and use the room. And so more than one person can use those rooms.
do you think, I'm just wondering how many people would be willing to go in and confront this gentleman, because he is a little ornery.
Well, if there's a behavioral issue, definitely bring it up to staff.
Well, I know, but those people are gonna just walk away. They're not gonna run and go to staff. And I mean, there's nothing that says on the door that this is a shared conference room, or these are the behavioral things that should be taking place, or sign it up for an hour and then you move on. I mean, it just seems like,
I think there are signs on the rooms that do indicate it's group study, and there's another sign under there that talks about the use of the room.
And can I comment that we do get questions on the floor of, hey, there's somebody in there, is there anywhere else I can go? And if not, we do invite them to share that space, and have walked people over to invite them to
And some
share
people
that
just don't want to
space.
share. I
Yeah,
mean, whether
that's
they're
also an
ornery
issue.
or not, they just want to have a room, so.
well, and I know I brought this up at a different meeting, but I would like to see us try again the system that so many other libraries have implemented successfully, whereas people sign up for an hour, and if nobody is there, you can stay in the room. But it almost gives the next person the right to go in and say, you know what, you signed up for an hour, you know, I need the room now and I signed up for the next hour.
We can explore that. I mean, we do have limited resources, so we've had instances regarding whenever we have other limited things to have like priority lists and things like that, so we can think about that.
Naperville does that really well, because what you do is you just, I mean, as an individual, I'm trained, because I go there a lot, to sign up. And then when it's my hour, I actually go in and I say, you know what, I'm the next one signed up. And because that everybody's aware of the system, it's much easier to have the patron move, because they're actually expecting it.
From the youth perspective, the hour signups, they are, especially during the school year, here at very specific times, and often waiting for an hour is not an option.
Right.
Particularly when they don't have their own modes of transportation. Mom and Dad have said you can be at the library from 4 to 5:30, and if there's no, waiting for an hour isn't going to do them any good. So then they just don't have the space to utilize. To reiterate what Elizabeth said about people coming in and not having space, especially during the school year, I'd say easily 3 to 4 times a week. I should say 3 to 4 days a week. We'll have tutors come up and looking for space. And while we do have pictured, like upstairs, we've got our tables and our open areas, our space is so tight upstairs that we have little ones exploring and playing 30 feet away from people trying to tutor and study, 30 feet away from a group of teenagers who've come in to play the PS4 or to read some books and socialize. And it's not a conducive tutoring environment or a conducive study environment. We do what we can to break it up, and we do what we can to keep certain noise levels down and appropriate, but it gets to a point where if you're studying, or if Tatiana's studying right over there, and I am playing a board game with my friends, there's really either one side has to give. You can't do both at the same time effectively.
Good point, and what I'm wondering is two things. Number one, we may consider consolidating actual quiet study space. I don't know how that would look. I don't have a solution, but I think it's something that we should think about, because, you know, to your point, if somebody's playing games with their friends, that's a different noise level. So I don't know what that would look like, but the other thing is maybe we should look at the different age groups and what their needs are. Because it seems like, you know, upstairs you have a need for, you know, kids to sit around and play a game. I'm hoping we don't have that need downstairs. I don't know if we do or we don't, but maybe we have to look at it. You know, what age group has what needs, and then how do we use the space we have most efficiently?
Yeah, designing for age range, I think, is important.
Before we move on, I'd like to answer the question that you posed at the very beginning, which is what do we think about that long row of glassed-in spaces? And, you know, I'm not crazy about it. Given the footprint we've got, it may be the best we can do. I kind of prefer to see study spaces or group spaces at various places throughout the building, not all in one.
Oh, sure. I mean,
So
you can have
given the current constraints, such a design may be the best we can do. But maybe we need more space to meet the needs of our patrons.
Right, and this, I'm just sharing the trend of having a row, but you can have cubes or even modular, like in the center of your building. You can have like a cube of glass.
An octagon.
Okay.
One more
Can we move
comment I want to make. I've had several constituents say to me, as a taxpayer, because we get taxed individually by, you know, the library, the village, this group, that group, it's kind of unique in Lisle. You know, other places it's all for one and all combined. I'm wondering, when we're running low on space, is there an ability to say, you know what, we don't have this space, but there's free space like in this building. I know the village hall or the village just reorganized and they actually freed up some space. So I guess as a taxpayer, these people are coming to me and they're saying, you know what, I get taxed for the rooms that are here. I get taxed for the rooms that are here. And my question is there any way to share a list of the rooms that are available across multiple organizations?
I'm sure, I mean, we refer people to many agencies every day, but we can look into the other agencies.
If you don't mind, Tatiana, this comes up periodically. It comes up about every 2 years. And we could, we've had former trustees suggest, renting space from various buildings. Some former mayors wanted us to rent space in various buildings. And we could do that, but what we always find is that the problems are worse than the solution. You create more problems than is the benefit from what you get from the solution. So that's why we've never done it.
But I think, Liz, were you suggesting not necessarily us renting space, but just sort of creating a directory of
Yes.
the availables,
Right.
what each
Same
unit of
problem.
government has?
Same problem.
For instance, if I'm calling and I want this room, and I can't get it for umpteen weeks, there's a room at the police station you can use for free. And taxpayers have paid to build that humongo building over there, and why not give the taxpayers better value? The Park District has several rooms that are open, like all the time.
Well, again, we refer people all the time to many agencies for many reasons and requests. We don't have a fax machine anymore, so we refer people to areas and stores and other agencies that have fax machines, so we do that.
And I think that's great. For some reason, the constituents who have approached me haven't found the right avenue to get that information or that referral from the library.
All they have to do is ask. That's all you gotta do.
I think that's probably come under this. I think one of the focus area we talked about was the shared services. So that's only one example. There's other things we talked about sharing, whether it's other resources. I know there's some. I understand your concept. I think it's something worth exploring. Where some areas underutilized, some areas over, or subscribed. So you just want to maximize resource across the area. I think it's an interesting concept. I think we can just talk about as part of the sharing services.
Okay, we should move on. Okay. The next area category is universal design. Now, there are 7 principles of universal design, or UD, as some people call it. These principles were developed by architects, engineers, and environmental researchers at North Carolina State University, and they've been adopted widely, worldwide, nationwide. The first principle is equitable use. And you see the image that's associated with that up on the screen. Equitable use is design that is useful and marketable to people with diverse abilities, and then some guidelines are to provide the same means of use for all users, identical when possible, equivalent when not. Also, another guideline is avoid segregating or stigmatizing any users. Principle number 2 talks about flexibility in use. And this is when the design accommodates a wide range of individual preferences and abilities. Guidelines being providing choice in methods of use, facilitating the user's accuracy and precision, and providing adaptability to the user's pace. I thought this was an interesting image for elevator or lift. So it's just something to think about. There's many varieties of access. Number 3 is simple and intuitive use. We have this. Use of the design, it's easy to understand regardless of the user's experience, knowledge, language skills, or current concentration levels. And the guidelines talk about eliminating unnecessary complexity. So I'm happy we put those doors in. Number 4 is perceptible information. The design communicates necessary information effectively to the user regardless of conditions or the user's sensory abilities. Guidelines focus on different modes of information, pictorial, verbal, tactile, and redundant presentation of essential information. And principle number 5 is tolerance for error. It talks about design minimizing hazards and adverse consequences of accidental or unintended actions. So providing fail-safe features like the bars around each toilet. And then number 6, low physical effort. The design can be used efficiently and comfortably with minimum fatigue, and this can be as simple as just automatic soap dispensers, and guidelines talking about minimizing repetitive actions or minimizing any physical effort for people. And then number 7 is size and space for approach and use. And you see 2 images there of wheelchair access to a desk and then a kids area. And this principle talks about appropriate size and space provided for approach, reach, manipulation, use, regardless of a user's body size, posture, or mobility. And then the guidelines talk about providing a clear line of sight to important elements, whether a user is either seated or standing, and making reach to all components comfortable for any seated or standing user. So what do we think about this? I think they're all good goals. Any thoughts?
Do you
Strongly in
mind,
favor.
do you mind sending the detailed descriptions?
Yes, I have a PDF. I will send it all to you.
Okay.
But when I brought this up at our first or second meeting, what I had in mind though was when we design new or build new, anticipate different ability levels so that we don't have to add on later, add on a ramp or add on a bar. So, I mean, all these are essential and we do about half of them, but I think we should keep in mind the main goal, which is to design from scratch with all ability levels in mind.
I have forthcoming slides that talks about some opportunities for us, some universal design opportunities, and showing some areas where we can do some improvements regarding UD concepts. So these are just some examples. I'm sure there are more, so I probably missed some. But our signage, so in regards to perceptible information, our signage is low for some, hard to see for some. It's not well lit, and it's not uniform in look. On the adult services floor, we have a very long line of magazine cabinets. They are very heavy for patron access. I know Elizabeth can
Yes,
speak to this.
very heavy and very low to the ground, I would add
Right.
as well.
Some of our desks do not accommodate those who require a different level of engagement, like our connection desk. Though we love the connection desk, it is a little bit, it looks like staff are hiding behind it a bit, and if someone were in a wheelchair or a little person, hard to service. And then we're back to the bathroom category. Our stalls do not have assist bars. The only stalls that do are our handicapped bathrooms, and then we do not have multi-level sinks, nor do we have non-manual soap dispensers. And then the last image is, this is that teen aisle again on the wall. It is a dark aisle, so there are some lighting issues. It looks a little brighter here, but if you go down there and trying to pull a book off, for those who may have some sight issues, it's a little dim. There are a few more. Our foyer doesn't have a greeter or any staff available when you approach walking through, and then our lobby too has very little directional signage and no staff. You do encounter the bathrooms and some doors, but at the end of the foyer, that's where you encounter an elevator and stairs. It's only there where you make your decision about how to use the building. So there are no staff and there's some minimal signage there. Up in youth services, there are some dark corners. So you can see way in the back there, we have a mirror. We installed a mirror back there to help with those kind of sight lines. They're very important in YS. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Not only that one, but from the desk, I have no idea what's happening over in the JH corner, which is where you really have to watch. And then same thing over, if I'm sitting and looking out, I can't see the 2 chairs over in our parent-teacher section either.
This section.
Yes,
So, okay.
yeah. Like that's the view. So you see our computer screen, that's our view. And so there's a whole section of wall and play area we can't see. There's 2 other chairs behind that calendar wall you see. So we do have that mirror, but then that mirror shows us a very slim portion of the little rock wall back there, which so many kids seem to take as a climbing wall. So there are just a lot of opportunities for children to be out of our eyesight upstairs, which can get interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, especially in the after-school hours in that back corner. We regularly, probably like, I'd say every 10 minutes or so, we just have gotten in the habit of getting up and pretending to go grab a book off the shelf over there, just so we know who's back there and what's going on, especially when it gets really quiet.
So I think we have some universal design opportunities we can address moving forward. Our next category is lobby and entrance, and we already discussed.
Before we leave the
sure.
inside,
Sorry.
we talked about trends that other libraries are adopting. One of the trends that I've seen, and I think I sent out an email before I was prohibited from doing so, that showed where many libraries are getting rid of the really large desks and they're
Right.
making them standalone. So I guess some of the things that we're talking about are going to require more space. I think in order to be successful, we're going to need to institute some other items simultaneously that save or give up some space.
We'll get there.
Okay.
Because that's that reference desk or the.
Circulation. We'll get there.
Okay, I'll wait.
Okay, so lobby and entrance is our next category in our survey, and we already discussed the 3 areas when you walk in the foyer, then the lobby, then the staircase. This is a shot from the corner of Kingston and Front Street. And our sign, if I can manipulate this, is right here where I'm moving. The library's hidden, it's right in here. If you're driving down Kingston, it's hard to see the library at all behind the trees. And then this is a shot coming down Kingston in the other direction. You can see the roof of the library right here, and then the sign is right here.
Tatiana, I don't mean to interrupt, but in the above, you're facing south, and in the bottom, you're going north.
Okay, thank you. A lot of people drive down Kingston here and they pass a sign and they realize it's a library, but it's too late, and then they take a right, and then they enter an employee lot, and then they realize they can't enter the building, so then they have to drive back around and up. As you can see in the little map there, is indicated by the yellow arrows and star, our entrance is on the back side of the building. So finding us is difficult for anyone who doesn't know where we're at.
But that should only be their first experience. I mean, once they're here one time, they should know the next time where we're
But
at.
do you know that every other day I encounter someone in our lot
Yeah.
who is in the employee lot, who wants to get in the building, and they don't know how. And it's almost every other day.
But then the second time, they'll be fine. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It's just a learning experience, I guess. Now, but going back to, like, the coming down Kingston, going south, and even the other northbound Kingston. I mean, are you talking about like opening it up, like maybe landscaping as far as
That's a
maybe
possibility.
cutting trees down or a
Or
tree down?
signage, or different entrance. I mean, I don't know. There's so many possibilities. I just want, this is a moment for us to discuss what we think about our presence in the community, our physical presence.
I
I
think
think we need, I'm sorry.
I think our learning experiences should happen in the building, not getting into the building.
But it only happens, I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, it doesn't even happen often, but after the first time, it's gonna solve itself.
Okay, then you're not a cheese brain when you drive. I'm a cheese brain when I drive. Sometimes my mind is elsewhere, and I am still going, and I come here all the time, to the entrance that used to be.
Right.
So I'm just saying, you know, like sometimes I get places, I don't know the route I took. I'm just like glad I'm there. So I would say it really, the signage needs to be improved. You know, I would like personally to see us reverse the traffic flow, more similar to the way it used to be, except making that hilled area continue to make it only one lane, just going up instead of down. But I think, you know, even if you're a visitor, how the heck would you know, or a new resident?
Exactly.
Can I comment? I feel that the first experience, to your point, should be a positive one, not a frustrating one. And I too am herding people out of the staff lot on a every other day basis, pretty much. And I did want to comment on the lobby. I think we're really behind here. I do visit a lot of other libraries, and there is always somebody within the entrance to greet me and tell me where I need to go.
We get so many adults who come upstairs and are super confused because they think the library's upstairs, and they walk in and either they are like really lost and confused and kind of just turn back around, or they'll come up and they'll ask like, do you have any adult books? Like what's going on here? And it's probably a daily occurrence that we have to tell whoever it is that like, no, head downstairs, that's where you want to be at. And you can always like, they have always a weird look in their eye when they walk in and just see picture books and little children everywhere. Yeah.
I think that we want to keep in mind that a part of our objective, our goal rather, is to plan a building not just for people who already know about it, but to expand out and welcome new visitors constantly. So we do want it to be easy to find, and if we've fallen down on that over the years, well, let's get it right. Let's improve the signage, let's improve the lobby.
So, I mean, the signage could even include in the library, like, you know, youth services upstairs and adult services below. And then, but I mean, even like I said, clean it up. If like you're saying, if you're coming down or Front Street going south on Kingston, if you think that's part of the problem is the building's hidden in the sign. I mean, you might want a new sign too, but I mean, maybe clearing out some trees, because obviously they'll see the building. They might even see the sign. They might see the building and say, "Oh, here we are." And along with that, I'm just looking at that green space along Kingston. I mean, again, I would have to look how it's laid out. But if you did clear out those trees, I mean, you could also get some parking spots on there. So if somebody does pass the entrance there on Kingston, they could just pull into a parking spot.
And some of the confusion is our address is on Front Street,
Yeah.
but you enter on Kingston.
Yeah.
And so obviously you need clear and visible signs to help people figure out where they need to go.
Yeah, every time I speak with someone on the phone, I send them a PDF I've doctored up to make sure that they can find their way here, especially if it's at night. It's
Sure. Yeah.
pretty dark.
Sure.
With regards to the lobby signage, there are big block letters over the stairs
That's what I thought there
that say
was.
adult
Yeah,
services and
that's
say
what I
youth
thought.
services up top, and it's
Yeah, so maybe you just need,
it still
because I thought
happens
there
all the
was,
time. Yeah.
but maybe you need, like the signs that hang from the ceiling or something. I mean, where it's more, it catches your eye. Because I thought there was.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
So I think we agree it's not effective, and we have to find a way to make signage or directions effective.
Well, the other element to the lobby is that there's meeting rooms, bathrooms, staircase, elevator, so many functions of the library access are right there, and there's no staff to help. And again, going back to the safety issue of the bathrooms, to me, the engagement I've had with the public in the lobby is they would like their children to be able to use the bathroom, and they feel like they need to accompany them even when they probably are old enough to go by themselves, just because it's an unattended area of the
I
library.
think it's a lot of traffic.
Yes.
So having a bathroom upstairs would or would not solve that?
It may, for a certain age, it depends, but there's the same age group might be using the facilities, or when I mean facilities, use the whole area of the library on the first floor. And again, most people don't know that there's a bathroom down at the east end. They're used to the one at they know where the one is at the east end. They don't know where the bathroom is at the west end down by the art gallery. So most people
Totally
gravitate to the one up here in the lobby.
And I think not even focusing on bathrooms, I think more Beth's point was that there are so many different things that are going on just right here that if you are not super familiar with where you need to be and where you want to be in this building, it can be very confusing.
I guess I'm kind of grappling with the process because I wonder if we should look at what are the problems we're trying to solve and then look at solutions. Because I think one of the things I'm concerned about is, like, you know, Beth brings up one type of problem and, well, you bring up another type of problem, and I think we have to separate out, these are the problems we're trying to solve, and this is the solution that'll get us closest to that.
I think we're doing that. I think we're talking about that. Here are some other examples. So we have our neighbors on our right. Their buildings are pretty prominent. So we've got Woodridge up at the top. Underneath that is Glen Ellen. Below that is Downers Grove. And then we've got Wheaton. So those are all around us. And then to the left are some examples of entry points to the building. You've got your doors, and then you've got staff ready to assist upon entering. So do we like this? So those are the outside doors, and as soon as you walk in, there's a desk. Whether it's a checkout desk, it's smaller, you've got someone who can guide you.
Well, I mean, would one of the thoughts be that maybe just to move circulation to, like, turning one of these meeting rooms into the circulation department?
That is a concept, because that's been floated, but we're not making decisions about this space or this whole building yet. But that's an idea for sure. That has actually been brought up before, I think in facilities steering way back when. So, but I'm talking about the concept of having a door and then having someone there to guide or assist or check out. Instead of having nothing.
What is more striking to me, back to your point, is none of these facades are hidden by trees. And as much as I would demand that we plant a tree for everyone,
Sure.
yeah, I'm a tree hugger,
Yeah.
plant a tree for everyone that we take down, I really think that one of the best things that we could do to allow people to see the building, and also it would help us to see what we're working with, you know, and I would just wonder if it's worth just asking our regular landscaper if they would have some idea for that, you know, because I would think they'd probably charge us if they're a regular landscaper.
Any other comments about entries outside of the outside?
Ideally, yes, if you were creating things anew, it would be nice to have a desk, someone welcoming them. You know, to go back to Laundry's point from earlier, yes, ideally, you got finite resources, where do you want to utilize your finite resources? But sure, I think that's, you know, creates a welcoming environment. It, you know, helps people if they have questions or unsure where they want to go.
Well, it might solve some problem, but you know, I've never liked greeters. If there's a way we could position it so that you could avoid them and not feel like you're being stared at. I mean,
like a car.
when I go to, you know, to places where there's staff at the door being real friendly to you, I don't like it.
Well, what if it's a circulation desk?
Then I find a way to go through a different aisle so that if I don't feel like I'm obliged to recognize them, or that I don't feel like I'm being honest. I mean, I'm not trying to disagree with Beth. I understand the problem we're solving, and I understand this would be an efficient, effective way to solve it. But if we do at some point discuss how to implement that, I'm going to say, let's make them unobtrusive, make it easy to. I don't like it.
I actually agree with Rich. To me, this isn't that high on my priority list as far as the whole greeter.
Well, I'm not talking specifically about a greeter.
No, I know.
I'm talking
just,
about
I mean,
a help desk
even
or a
just
checkout
signage.
station.
I mean, once you're down the stairs, you're right there at circulation, though, too. I mean, maybe signage would work, but I mean, to me personally, it's, you know.
I think that there's a way to accomplish it. I mean, if we decide that that's the direction we want to go, and we're not discussing that right now, but if we do decide it, there must be a way to position it like they do in hotels, where, you know, it's easy to find someone to talk to if you have a question or need directions. It's easy to avoid them if you want to be left alone. There must be a solution.
I'd like to just, I think I already made my feelings clear, but I would like to reiterate that I do think we need a staff member in the entrance. And just to share from my experience, I've done the foyer display, so I've been there for 20 or 30 minutes. I get more questions standing in the foyer, or not standing, but doing my display, than you would believe. And it's, where do I go to get my library card? What, do I need a utility bill or whatever? I also facilitate the book discussion in this room, which is the first door when you enter. And I have had people come into the book club, see my name tag and say, excuse me, I'm looking for the HOA meeting. And then I have to get up and go help them, which I'm happy to do. But there's a need. People are asking questions at the entrance.
So we don't know what the solution is, but we know what the problem is.
All righty. Okay, so I think the next biggest question was, what is a media lab or a maker space, and what do they look like? Well, there are all kinds. Here we have a 3D printing lab. It's a small room or wall. It has printers and PCs. There's also varying sizes of printers. Some are the size of a microwave, some are the size of a smart car. So it's up to the library and the institution. Libraries have also invested in craft spaces. So there's rooms in libraries that are devoted to just craft making or knitting or sewing. There's also rooms that are devoted to sound or AV or filming spaces at some libraries. I know Barrington's got one here. Of course, there are STEAM and STEM spaces for young adults. And then there's obviously a variety of room sizes. You can see this one on the left, the bottom left is a smaller glassed-in room, and then we've got the vast space that has everything from a 3D printer to, I think they were engravers and things like that. So just what do we think about having a space for these kinds of activities? I'm not saying we're choosing one now, like definitely a craft space.
Strongly support.
But having a space where there's making or media specifically just for that, where there's got equipment and materials.
I guess what I would ask is, we're serving about 28,000 people, right? So how do our services compare to other libraries that serve about 28,000 people? Because my concern is, if we're comparing ourselves, like the picture in the middle could be serving 150,000,
Sure.
or it could be a university
Sure.
library.
Sure.
And so I kind of want to, we have a lot of other libraries that are close. We have reciprocal ability in Illinois. So I would love, if I had all the money in the world, to build the best here. Given that we do have resource limitations, I'd like to see what other libraries do that serve 28,000 people.
It's doable. Any other comments?
I mean, like a media lab is fine. I would start small to see how successful it is at first. The other thing is, plus with the technology that changes so rapidly, I would want to start small, see how it goes. Now, the only question I had is on the maker space. Is that the one on the bottom right corner? Or
It
is-
could be any of them.
Okay.
Really can be considered a maker space.
I mean, is that like crafts that people bring in and do things, or is it something we provide, like the materials? How does that?
It can be either. Some libraries provide materials. I know that for the printers, the plastics that are used, or the wax, or whatever it is, patrons pay for that. So.
Okay, but I guess I was more asking like on the craft angle, not so much the 3D printing and stuff, but that's either or.
Sometimes people bring in,
Or it could be a
sometimes the
program.
library provides, sometimes it's a half-half.
I think the media lab is, I'm definitely for that. I mean, like I said, I would probably start small to see how it goes first, and then, especially like I said, you might buy something in 3 years, who knows? I mean, who knows what the next generation of you with 3D printing is?
True.
Yeah, I think it's, I agree with Tom. I think it's a good idea, but at the same time, as Liz mentioned, we need to kind of probably start small, a pilot. Maybe very likely will be a bias toward serving one certain demographic or age group than the other, but let's see how that goes. And they're also competing with the group study space and everything too. So we'll just have to say what is the priority and what technology we want to bring that's unique, that's give us some data as a pilot group, see if we want to expand this concept beyond that what we have.
And I guess we have to look at who our target market is, because there are, like if you go into UPS or the FedEx store, every one of them makes money off of their 3D print. So what I'm seeing is it's a lot of small businesses or people who work at home who are using those 3D printers. Okay, so are we targeting students who are going to learn how to use it, or are we targeting people who are finding a lower cost alternative to accomplish their 3D printing?
All the above. It's a learning process as well for every library. So they start small and then go from there. I know that we've received many requests for a 3D printer here. We've had people come to our board meeting saying, why aren't we doing that? Other libraries are doing that. I can't use that libraries. Some libraries do restrict non-residents from using the new for a period of time. I know that I think Bolingbrook did for a while, or Fountaindale did for a while. So we've been asked for it by some patrons. I know I had a patron come and visit with me in my office asking for craft space. We have a lot of crafters in Lisle. We have a lot of very talented and creative people in Lisle. Our art wall is evidence of that. But we also have like the rug hookers who meet in this very room, and other crafters, quilters. So there is interest. I know. I don't know how big the interest is. I don't know which segments we should target right away. But I know that there is making interest.
And that's kind of where I was going to go then with the craft space. 'Cause I know there's a new business like a year or so old in downtown Lisle that is, I guess, like kind of a craft-oriented business. It's called The Collective, and I am cognizant of that. I don't want to really undercut any of our small businesses.
I don't think that's what these things do.
Okay.
I think they're learning and experiential for a lot of kids.
Yeah.
I think people want to see if they can hack it sometimes, depending on what the project is. And then if they like it, or if they want to explore further, then they either go into business for themselves or go somewhere else.
I suppose you're using the word hack metaphorically.
Yes.
And it's a good example, like with the green wall up there, that is often used for, video or mixing with music and video. A lot of times it's for someone's first experience with it.
True.
So.
Or for school presentations.
Yes, school and presentations is really important, and we get a lot of asking for that. And that seems to be big on the junior high activity, regardless of what school we're talking about in our area, that be working collaboratively in groups. So you've got a group that needs maybe to come in and make their presentation, and they're looking for guidance from us, and then we don't necessarily have the tools that they'd like to use. So I think that's a great example of like what 5th through 8th graders are being exposed to in the school.
Have we ever considered, and again, this would go under shared services, like doing a partnership with Benedictine? I don't know if they have such a room. I don't know. It's something we'd have to go contact them about. But Lisle taxpayers are still smarting from the fact that we built them all this crap and they're paying $1 for it, and we have it on our budget to pay till 2024. So it would seem to me that the case could be made to Benedictine that it would, if they're going to be a good partner with Lisle and Lisle taxing bodies that provide services, that they might want to consider something like that as a partnership.
And just to piggyback what kind of what Beth said. I would like to see like what the local schools are doing as far as like the multimedia, the green wall, just to see if those are offered and how, you know.
We can do that,
It's-
but
so it's not
just
too-
remember, we're open on the weekends and
No,
at night.
no, I know, but I just want to make sure either we're not duplicating or it's being offered, so I just, kind of just a line of communication with the local schools, see, at least if it's supplements.
They have
each-
books too in libraries as
Oh,
well.
okay.
So, again, we're open on the weekends and at night and on days that school is not.
No, I understand, I just want to make sure like this, so it could be a supplement, that's fine, but just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Before we move on, I hope that we might consider smart meeting rooms too.
Technology.
Media lab, makerspace. I've wanted to turn this into a smart meeting room for a long time, and we never seem to get around to it. And I know lots of groups use this space and could benefit from that.
All right, we should move on. HVAC. Stands for heating, venting, and air conditioning. We have units throughout the building, inside and out. They are large, they are loud, and they are essential. The photos with the white outlines indicate they are outdoor units. I wanted to share with all of you what our units look like, because I'm sure you never really even take a look at them. And just to provide a better understanding of what our system is here, it's a variety of units. There's not one system. There's not one lifespan for these guys. It's a grouping. So I'm going to leave it to Beth to walk us through this. So if we want to start on the west end, what are we looking at?
Okay, so on the far left, on top of each other, we have two air conditioning condensers, compressors, whatever you want to call them, on the left side, and those take care of the lower level, the admin area, the nonfiction area, tech services, the receiving area, the staff lounge. That's kind of what those two, those were replaced probably about 7 years ago. Okay, so the two, next to it on the top, those two white panels that are long, those are like mini computers that run the heating and air conditioning for that west end. They're in the mechanical room on the west end. Below that are that's the boiler. There's two boilers, and there's a main boiler and then a smaller backup one. And so on the really cold days, both boilers would be operating at a high temperature. Really, both boilers are operating every day of the year, but at a lower temperature. And that takes care of the whole building for the heat. And that's in the west end. And then below that is a picture of the air handler for the west end. And there's two of those air handlers downstairs that take care of different parts of
I didn't include all the pictures,
Right.
but just to give you an idea of these large units.
Okay, so up on the top, where it says south side, that is the outside smaller air conditioner that takes care of the adult services office. Next to it, going to the right, where it says server room, that is an outside unit on the far right, and then it operates like an air conditioner into the server room. And it operates at a lower temperature to keep the servers cold. Then we have the east end. Below that, you have two condensers outside. One takes care of this area, the meeting room, the lobby, the bathrooms, and the other one takes care of youth services. And below that, you have the two air handlers that are here in the east end mechanical room that work to provide the heating or air conditioning for the east end.
And how old is the east end?
The east end air handlers are about 30 years old. The air handlers on the west end are about 37 years old, but it seems like the air handlers on this end cause us more problems. All the boilers are newer, and so are all the outside air conditioning units. However, we're having a lot of trouble with one of them that runs this room.
Right.
So what do you think kind of the future state is really, some of them clearly needs to, so all needs to, either are we going to think about replacing individual unit, or are we thinking about, hey, just revamping this, have more centralized HVAC system in general? Because you are like pieces in here and there. I don't know much about this, HVAC system, but I just think it's definitely not efficient way to run the whole building.
Well, I'll tell you what, the one most inefficient unit is that south side unit. That unit, if you know what the adult services office looks like, where I used to be department head, that unit services that room.
Just that.
Only. Okay.
And that unit is the size of this table and that cart put together. It's huge.
Is it designed though to probably air condition more, just the way the building is designed interior?
It can handle much more space.
So just the way the
But
interior
the-
is designed is.
What do you call it?
Yes.
Those
Air
air
ducts.
ducts.
Air ducts, yep.
The ducts are not lined up with it. It
Sure.
just services the adult services
So
office.
it's
So-
just like, yeah. Okay.
No, go ahead.
Now I'm just thinking, it seems like all the pieces end up together. Number one, different age. Number two, a lot of aging designs, assuming it's very inefficient, is a waste of energy, right?
So you just might need more duct work actually, because you might have actually the air conditioner,
horsepower.
yeah, the horsepower, so to speak, to air condition more of the building. You just need more duct space or duct work.
Arrangement or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
So-
I don't know enough. about
But
it.
I know that on the east end there, that one, like the beige one, we just had someone come out and say that it's kind of on its last legs, though probably could be, if we did something different with the configuration of the building, repurposed, used.
Which one's the new one that was just replaced
The
like
west
the last
end.
6 years?
The west end side.
What was replaced?
Wasn't one of them, wasn't there like a new HVAC that was put in like 6, 7 years ago?
The west end, right?
They all were.
Oh, all of them?
I believe,
Okay.
yeah,
Oh.
I'd have to double check that, but I believe that all of them are about
7 years
all
old.
of
7 to
what?
8. All the outside condensers are about 7 to 8 years old.
Not the east end one on the left. Oh, really? I thought you said that one was 30 years old. You're just saying the air handlers.
The
30
air
years old.
handlers are
Okay,
old.
Okay.
So there might be like
There's an issue with that
parts.
one though.
The
Yeah.
HVAC themselves are probably okay, just parts or somewhere along the supply chain, so to speak,
Maybe so.
needs to get replaced.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought for sure that beige one was an older unit. That's not. Okay, it's just having problems. Okay.
Correct.
I mean, if there were parts, there's every summer for the last 3 years, we've had several days with no air conditioning upstairs. Just this Tuesday, when it was real feel 97 outside and humid, we had no air conditioning for an entire day. My staff, that's unacceptable.
No, I mean, what I'm saying is, I'm not a HVAC guy, but I did, like the system itself might be fine. It's just a part or somewhere along the line needs to just be replaced. It's like whatever's 30 years old.
There's a couple air
Yeah,
handlers.
so something, yeah, air handlers, so that would probably need to be replaced and maybe some other thing. And the little bit I do know of commercial air conditioners from my offices, and I mean, these things are ridiculous. I mean, you have maintenance out almost every week or every couple of weeks, even, it's almost everybody has this. I mean, it's just an ongoing maintenance, it's a pain.
But they don't break down for a full day.
No, but I mean, there's always, well, sometimes, and not maybe very frequent, but they sometimes do break. But again, I mean, they're a pain to deal with. I mean, you have to call your maintenance man out at least once a week or once every couple of
Well,
weeks.
that should not happen.
Well, I understand, but that's just commercial air conditioning, at least.
I don't know about that.
The ones I've dealt with, I mean.
If
you know.
your office was 97 degrees every 2 weeks, you would
No,
riot.
no, I'm saying there's definitely, I mean, things need to be, I think we're talking past, I agree. What I'm saying, I don't think you just need to replace the whole system, it's just probably a part of the system.
Or the ductwork.
Exactly.
Things like that.
Yeah.
If it were just one part though, it wouldn't be like 3 years continually every summer, and then during the winter it happens like it suddenly heats everything up like crazy, where it's the dead of winter and it's 85 degrees upstairs.
Well, I think we
Because-
need to make some investments in the older equipment.
When you send the PDF, can you like, kind of describe, like, make like a special,
Page, or-
like a page, like describe what these are and just a little,
Can you do that?
little
Okay.
note of each of them?
That's fine.
Okay.
Because I think this is where, the facility committee should come back with some level of recommendation, right? right?
Okay. All right, IT infrastructure. These things are just to apprise you of the 3 main technology hubs in the building. One of our categories is obviously technology, so we'll dive deeper into that in future meetings. But I think most of you walked through that server room. It is a small room. It's on the west end of the building with lots and lots of equipment and cables and different servers and server, whatever you call that thing. So those cables run above our heads, and then they head on over to this end of the building, the east end. So that's the circulation office switch, and then we've got a switch in the YS office. And so, and it may be possibly in a future meeting, whether it's physical plant or not, or at our category meeting in regards to technology, we can bring in our IT manager. She can talk to us a little bit more extensively on an infrastructure plan for us. But I just wanted to share with you what we're talking about when we talk about the cabling to this end of the building and the other end of the building. Those 2 switches that happen in circulation office and the YS office. They attach to our little server room.
Just real quick, so out of this, what is the most vulnerable, I mean, just from reliability and performance standpoint out of all those 3 areas you talked about?
Well, I think it was the uniformity in type of, I don't have the jargon, but type of equipment, whether it's like a Cisco server or a Dell server, and we've had just a patchwork quilt of different gadgetry, I'll just use that term. So we have purchased some new switches, we have purchased some routers, and they are all uniform. So we're in the process of installing them this summer. So hopefully that will help out with some of the glitches we've had.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
The cable management is not up to snuff, obviously.
Like the spaghetti works back there?
Yeah. When new things are being installed, are we holding the vendor responsible for cable management?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's from past. So we're trying to manage it and have a better architecture, for lack of a better word. Okay, so we're going to use the word detention. We've used retention and detention. The word is detention. That refers to spaces to confine and drain stormwater. And then retention is about, ponds that are meant to hold water. So we want to drain the stormwater. So I'm going to refer to Beth in these areas just to apprise us of where we're talking about here.
Okay, so the one on the left, that is along Front Street, and that is a main area that really takes care of the water coming from the, if there would be an overflow, off from the staff parking lot area and also the east parking lot area. As you know, there are rules about water detention, that you have to do it on your own property, and you can't push water onto your neighbors. We're supposed to take care of water. This is stormwater, by the way. It's not anything to do with sanitary sewers. So you have several storm drains, catch basins there on the left, and probably in the next 10 days that's going to be serviced, because as you can see there's water sitting in there. And then again on the right, this is behind the south parking lot, and the design is kind of unusual, but it probably was, captured our property limitations at the time to have a parking. So this is very long and narrow there on the right, and it seems to have filled up on a couple times when we've had major water, and at that time then you get about 4 feet of water. The perspective maybe not there in that picture, but it does hold a lot of water.
Right.
And we've had that pumped out twice. So after the sewer service company works on the one on the left, they're going to look at the one on the right, because they could visually see that there's some roots in all the drains. So we're going to have that looked
Pumped
at.
out twice in how long? Like twice in 5 years, twice in 10 years? Or do we know?
Like
Well,
3 years, right?
It was twice in the past
2 years. 2 or 3 years.
year.
Oh, really? 1 year.
Right.
Okay.
And then I know that the previous director worked with the one on the left where they thought that there were rocks in the
Drain.
storm sewer.
And this is not just to discuss the current issue with the water, but it's also just to keep in the back of our minds that we have to have these areas, so were we to do something different, we have to address stormwater, okay? All right, I'm gonna keep us moving. So staff space and office space, I don't have pictures of the staff spaces. I think we're all familiar with a lot of them. What I do have, oops.
What's up? Uh-oh, reboot.
It's doing this.
There we go.
Okay, let's go back.
There we go.
All right, so I'm showing some more modern concepts. Here we have a basic shared space using kind of a modular desk. Next we have a more modern kind of cubicle version. One's a linear version and the other is a more cube-like and sectional. The next image is basically, it's my recommendation for each department to have a small conference room for personnel meetings. That is missing in every department. I know I can speak to that. I know staff can speak to that.
There's no private space to have a one-on-one between staff, and I think that's imperative. And I just want to be clear, because that sounds like if you're having a one-on-one with a staff member, it's something bad, and that's not necessarily the case. But we do our evals every year, or just throughout the week, there might be a sensitive issue that a staff member wants to speak to me privately about, and then I have to take a study room. And then I'm taking that away from the public, and I really would rather not. So I'm very supportive of this.
I kind of would like it to be shared space because I think we're not in a position where we can dedicate staff meeting space. So I would actually like it to somehow be space that's shared both with staff and the public. And, you know, that's no different than most firms I've been with. I mean, people had to share the one-on-one small space. They had to share, you know, the large space.
Well, just to be clear, all the staff space is a shared space, except for my office, and Ginger's office and Beth's, and they're very small. But the departments have all shared space outside of having just a small closet to speak one-on-one with staff.
Yeah, I don't know if I could support a small conference room for each department. That takes up, that would take up too much space. I mean, maybe one for everybody, possibly, but even that I'm a little hesitant. I think, you know, that one I'm kind of cool on.
I mean, I'll speak to, at least in youth services, a space like that would be super useful, not just for meetings, but for a place for us to prep and prepare our programs. Because right now, the YS activity room kind of serves as that space, and then the back office space serves as that space. So occasionally there are times when I have staff who come into work and their entire desk space is covered with, like, this week we did Earth Science and Monday Fun Day, and so someone came in and they had our mini water tables, which were tinfoil trays full of sand and water all over their desk. Or we are prepping for, especially around this time, summer reading, we have all these incentives for the kids and we have all these other programs going on, and we have very narrow times when we can use that activity room to do those things, because then we have story time the next day, and you can't have all that stuff out when you have kids in the room. So we have to say, like, can you get this done in the 4 hours you have and then get it out of the way? If you can't, then you can't do that thing.
Well, it's just a recommendation.
I support it.
It does help a lot instead of using the space that can be provided for patrons. But if we had more study space, you know, that's another option. And then, of course, having an adequately sized and adaptable staff break area. Right now, you've all walked through there. It's just one long table. Having separate tables sometimes it might be a better. I'm not sure what everybody thinks about it, but just another concept to think about. Okay.
Actually, with regards to just, not even just that little room, but staff space in general, like the shared office space is great, but when you're working on, like I said, when you're working on something, there might be a time when someone else's desk is your program prep space, and then that person can't use their stuff. or use their computer.
Well, and I can attest, I mean, you've all walked into the admin office, it is tight. A lot of the staff areas are tight. When I worked in adult services, trying to write while 2 people are speaking and others are typing or doing something, or on the phone making phone calls to home delivery patrons, very, very difficult to concentrate. So having a little corner or a room like that to be able to accomplish something where you need to concentrate would be very beneficial.
But I know, our office did it too, but I know the kind of the new thing for offices is kind of that whole open space.
Well, we have that.
Yeah, so I mean, to get away from that, like where you almost have personal space is kind of.
Well, it's not every person,
Yeah.
it's one closet per department.
Per department, that's a little too much for me.
Well, we will move on to centralized circulation. Provides one-stop shopping as well as operating efficiencies, and there's many types of desks. You can see that current desks are trending smaller, allowing for more fluidity between the staff and patron ease of walking around to assist people. You can see that in the next image here with the cutouts, being able to walk through and assist patrons instead of having just a barrier between you and the patrons. The last photo is one I really like. It's where you have the smaller desk. You've got the office behind to attend to like interlibrary loans and things like that. And then you've got your line of self-checks behind you. So people can self-check, and then you've got maybe 1 or 2 staff at a help desk for either paying for fines or if they have questions, things like that. What do we think about this kind of configuration?
Kind of what I was going at before is like, it does seem kind of bulky and takes up a lot of space. So I mean, if there's a way.
The one we have?
The one we have, and even that help desk, not the circulation desk, but like where you could get the, I think the Kindles or.
The
right?
connection. The
The
connection.
connection desk, yeah. I mean, I know you were talking about like accessibility or universal design before, and that's fine with that too, but I think part of the problem, it does seem like too much space or too bulky. I think that could still be utilized, but smaller, whether it's like one of those desks in the bottom left, or even something even in the upper left would be, doesn't seem as bulky, I guess. Although the one in the upper left starts getting close to what we almost had, just a little smaller, but.
Because right now down in circulation, I think there are 5 stations.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like it takes up a lot of, it's big.
Okay. Any other comments?
I'm strongly in favor of centralized circulation. As long as it is easily accessible and conducive to entering and exiting the building, but I know having to do circulation upstairs and youth services is a enormous burden on my staff that other youth services departments in the area don't have to do, so they're able to actually do their youth services job as opposed to all the circulation stuff. That doesn't mean just checking people and checking out. That means looking for items that have patrons are claims returned. That means running holds. That means there's a litany of things that we have to do upstairs in youth services.
So you're for?
I'm for
Yeah,
centralized
I agree.
circulation, yes.
I don't.
Yeah,
What does
it's
that
duplicating.
mean, centralized circulation?
Just meaning, well, I think this came from way back when. We were just talking about having one circulation desk instead of having the duplicate functionality on the
Up
upper
and down,
floor.
is that
There's
what
one
we're
up,
doing?
there's one up in youth services.
Yeah.
Right.
I wasn't sure.
The issue always has been is where do you put it?
Right.
With the footprint of the building as it is now,
Well, that's why
Yeah,
this
who wouldn't
this
want-
room
yeah.
was
Yes.
floated, because you want something close to a door where you got people selecting materials and then you're funneling out either here or there. So, but we haven't gotten to RFID yet, so.
Well, and I also would like the checkouts, self-checkouts, to somehow rearrange the space so that they're more prominent.
We'll get there. Okay. All right. Another line item on our survey was increasing the audiovisual space on the adult floor. This area was not addressed when we did our renovation in 2007. More materials are in the AV format, music, movies, video games, so there may be forthcoming formats, we don't know. It is a hot commodity space in that area of the building. I know Elizabeth has some comments on this area.
I do. I would like to just add, this collection circulates very well. It's very popular. It is so tight, we don't have room to face anything face out. It is all spine out. We also have to weed more aggressively here because we don't have space for the incoming materials. And that's sad because you don't want to weed something that's circulating well. Tatiana mentioned multiple formats, video games especially, have new formats coming out. The Nintendo Switch, I think, was our most recent addition. The more formats that we have, the less space that we will have, so we have to anticipate that. And again, just going back to the space, we get so many requests for to purchase TV series. Why don't you have such and such wonderful TV series? I love it. TV series is this much shelf space depending on how many seasons you have, and we have to say no, but we can ILL it. And we don't want to do that. We want to meet patron needs. So this is a really exceptionally tight area.
This doesn't mean that, we have to blow out this area and make it huge. It's just, I think we're talking about the fact that this format doesn't fit this space. Now, whether that this gets moved to another area where there's more elbow room, that's another idea. But what we're doing here is just informing and letting you know the experience that happens.
I got a
building.
question kind of for this. This seems to be a popular area for the circulation. How come, like, not just our library, but all libraries have this type of success with this, but like video stores have gone away, and even like Best Buy and Walmart, they don't hardly sell DVDs and CDs anymore. How come it works for us but doesn't work? Is there like been any study on that, or?
I think one thing is this is free, right?
That's probably one of them.
That's what I was gonna
That's
say.
probably the one. But yeah, and then I had something else. I can't remember what it was though.
So on the circulation report, are you talking about adult non-print? I mean, is that the line we're talking about? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking about around the same line as Liz too, is as we start to make a decision on space, so what to staff, what areas. We have, the several years back, the statistics, so we kind of talk about how we're going to try to allocate and prioritize in terms of what kind of material is really growing. Then we allocate more space toward that. If we say AV is where we're growing, then maybe we'll have to come at the price of the print. We don't know. So, but hopefully we have the statistic and hopefully help us guide on some of those decisions.
Or within AV, there's areas in AV that do better than others, like popular movies probably do better than like opera, possibly, just guessing. But so we can dig deeper there. Also, part of it is the configuration that we have now. They're popular, but there probably can be more discovery there if the display is a little bit more,
it is hard to
more
look for
inclined.
things.
You don't have to get down on your hands and knees to pull up.
Is there ever like a request for vinyl records? I know those have kind of surged in popularity again. Anybody ever say you got any? No? Okay.
Collectibles, you mean?
Yeah, but vinyl, I know like vinyl records are
Yeah.
kind of like.
Send them to that little shop that
Yeah,
opened up in
that's
Lisle.
true,
We
that's
don't
true.
put them
Yeah,
out of
that's true,
business.
that's true.
Now, I know on the circulation report, we have holds placed and holds checked out. Do we ever divide that data down so that we can understand, are people putting holds on adult print, adult non-print? I think it would help us in our decision-making to understand what kind of media are these holds being placed upon?
We have access to that information. I'm
Oh,
kind of
we
pushing
don't-
us along
I
because we
know.
really
Go
need to
ahead.
roll.
Okay.
I want to get through all the categories. So car drop-off lane was on our list. We do not have one. We do have a fire lane that people use as a car drop-off lane. So the first picture just depicts what a lane might look like. It has, very distinct line there, and then it's got adequate space for a car to pass. Then we've got some canopied versions. I mean, these aren't libraries, but just to give you an idea of the ability to have a drop-off lane in front of your doors. And then lastly, we have like the roundabouts. So just wanted to share and show what is out there. The next line is increasing our YS space in general. This was on the list due to programming space as well as showing for proper sight lines and adding innovative and experiential learning places. So here's a great space. It's open, colorful, has a variety of levels, great sight lines. Here's some of what, it's a small picture, I'm sorry, of what I know Will wants. He wants some bin shelving and also has that sight line ability there. We've got STEAM playgrounds to explore and actually do science and experiment. And then we've got some other experiential places, some tactile learning. That image on the bottom left is what they call a digital ball wall. I want that. I think it's so cool. It's kind of an art and tech experiential thing. So, Will, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, our space is woefully inadequate for what's been the trends in the last 10, 15 years dealing with how children learn. People are finally coming around to the idea that children learn extremely well through play, and having a space like this to explore and work on those gross motor skills for younger kids, fine motor skills for older kids. It's going to other libraries. I am always super jealous and want to just sit around and play in those areas with the kids. I don't want to come back. I mean, I love you guys. I love being here, but there is so much great stuff that we can do with something like this, and right now I can't do that. We have our small little section where I can offer some puzzles, and we put in the Lego. We turned the bench into a little Lego table 2 years ago, but I really am not able to offer anything remotely close to this scale with what we have right now.
The shelving in the bottom right corner, could you just move what we have in the AV upstairs? Because it's kind of similar.
So the problem with that, Tom, is that those hold CDs, and I need them to hold picture books, which are often 3 times, if not 4 times the size of a CD.
I think we could talk about, back to Liz's point, solutions. We could talk about that forward and choices. We're just looking at concepts, okay? So I need to move. I need to move. No, I'm sorry. I want to get through all of the categories. So electrical access and capacity. This is just a general slide. Our good friend ComEd, that's our source. Right now we have floor outlets and wall outlets and some strip outlets on some walls. There are also some innovative ways of plugging in, not only electrical outlets, but data ports and USBs and tables, kind of flip tops and along the sides. So I think these are all good things. Right now, Beth mentioned people plugging into the floor and then stretching across an aisle. I think we'd like to avoid that moving forward.
And as we increase the conference room, that's where all these plugs will be, considered. Yep.
Right. The next is exterior space. This is a very general category, so what I'll show are some interesting exterior treatments that other libraries are doing, just some things to consider. So we have outdoor reading spaces with umbrellas that have stands with materials, obviously weather contingent. But I thought that was kind of neat and inexpensive way for our patrons to share the outdoor space. There are gaming areas, I had to throw some chess in here, so there's some tables that can be placed outside or having those giant chess boards. It's so cool. The amphitheater has been floated in the past, having some kind of a stage outside with some seating. Having other experiential or gardening or play areas around the building, unique seating spaces. We don't have a lot of that here. Our landscaping doesn't allow for it really, and our parking lot doesn't. And then the last thing, I think a playground's been floated in the past, or sharing services with the park district, having something extended from our building or our campus. So just some ideas to think about moving forward. I want to move on to RFID. This topic also got a lot of questions. This graphic does do a good job of showing the variety of ways RFID helps us. You can use RFID for a book within a book drop, so it's an immediate check-in. It helps with theft detection. Obviously, our self-checkouts are RFID. It can also assist with shelf management, so you can use a scanner on the shelving units for inventory. The tagging is just tagging materials, and then the self check-in and check-out. There is also, and you can see on the pictures on the right, the top image shows an RFID checkout station, and then you've got the doors that've got kind of the glass walkthroughs. That woman there is checking out, and that little next to her books, there's the pad. You can place your whole stack of books on that pad, and it checks it out all at once. You don't have to scan. And then the bottom image is an automation aspect of RFID. Using the book drop, RFID can sort materials automatically, saving staff time or staff doing it at all, and then you just have your page shelf your books. So there are some savings here in terms of time and energy and cost.
I've worked with RFID before. The one function I don't understand is tagging, because that would be very specific to a library. Could you just explain
It's
that?
just putting the tags in the books, that's all it means.
The RFID tag is put in the material.
Right.
Okay. Is there,
The library will close in 15 minutes. If you wish to
When
apply
we
for or
get a
choose
new book
library
now,
card, please do so
I
now.
remember there was a room with 2 or 3 desks, and people were, I don't know exactly, and I can't remember what it was called, but I think it's right by the employee parking lot. And I think maybe it was called technical services. What were they doing as opposed to tagging? I'm not.
They do tagging.
They do tagging. Currently it's just really our AV items that are tagged. The books are not.
Well, reference are.
Okay, and how would this tagging via the RFID concept, how would that change technical services? I'm not.
They would just have to, when they bring in a new book, they
It's
would
just
tag.
adding
They would
a
just
tag.
tag it.
Okay.
Tag it.
Thanks.
Sorry, I'm going so fast here, guys, but, so the next slide is teen space. This is something we do not have here. We have a junior high-ish area upstairs, but we don't have really a space for the high school-aged kids. So as you can see, there are a variety of looks. Most do keep it modest in terms of size, but not modest in terms of color, and I think that's a good thing. So they're very bright and colorful. The collection is usually always nearby. They have some unique seating, have some technology access there. Even the smaller libraries, I think I mentioned at a prior meeting, I went to Lamont, and they had like a small corner, but it did serve its purpose for that population. Comments?
I would just add that I would invite you to try to find a library that doesn't have a teen space. I think we're way behind, and it's doing a disservice to our teens. And to Tatiana's point, it doesn't have to be a whole floor, but a pocket for them.
Okay. And expanding new materials, we do have some shelving units on the adult services floor. I think you're all familiar with. It's all right. We did the best we could in terms of providing space, but we can only show so many formats and so many of each format. And youth services has even less of a shelving unit in terms of new materials. And that's where most of our patrons, when they come to the building, they want to go there first and take a look. So just looking at exploring better ways to highlight our new materials. And I think I talked with Elizabeth today about this topic, and
So just
She
to
had a good
add, not all new materials make the new materials display.
That's a
So,
sad thing.
It's very sad. There's stuff coming out of the box, getting processed, and going right into the regular circulating collection, which makes discovery very difficult.
We actually have 3 different places where we have new materials because not everything can fit on that shelf. So that's confusing, and then we also have to cut down how long I would like to keep them out there. Thankfully, in this picture, because I think this was, you can see the leaves. Yeah, this was this summer. Stuff is going off really well, but especially like at the beginning of the month when we get a new order in, we'll get 30 new picture books to put there, and so I'll have to, instead of keeping them on the new shelf for like 8 weeks, I'll have to cut it down to 6 weeks or 5 weeks. So some stuff that even if it's doing amazingly well, it's on the new shelf, I'll have to put it in the normal collection because there's not enough space to keep it there for a longer period of time.
So in the back of your minds, you have to think about better ways. Next, is this the last? On our list is drinks, coffee, and snack space. So The library does have a foyer space if you wanted to eat a snack or have a drink. I'm not an alcoholic, but we don't provide the ability to purchase anything here. So yes, some libraries do have cafes. Some of them are on the outside, some of them are on the inside, but other libraries offer vending machines, whether there's some healthy snack vending machines, there's coffee vending machines. So I think this is something that has been requested by our patrons. I think we've discussed it a little bit, but there are options out there. Any thoughts?
So this is one of my favorite, even though probably it's least favorite from survey, I think. But so when you have like a coffee shop or snack space, do you also have a designated area to eat it? Because assuming you don't want people to bring.
Yes.
You know, okay, so that's.
Yeah, having a couple tables is always usually
The trend in libraries, though, because I did some research on this, is not to have a specific place to eat, to allow people to eat where they're doing work, which I thought was interesting.
I could see it on desk space, but not near computers or technology.
I mean, my thought is, you know, we've heard a lot of great things that we need to do, and we only have limited space, that I would be wary of using any of our limited space for a coffee or snack space. We could have a teen space, or more youth services space, or more new material space, or more study room space. That this, to me, would be low on the priority list.
Even a vending machine?
Okay, maybe a vending machine in the lobby.
Yeah, the vending
Right.
machine, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
I mean, I think, but these are things that were brought to our attention, so I think that's the decision-making meeting we have in the future about like what takes priority.
Yeah, I couldn't see going anything past the vending machine in the lobby.
Well, actually, really quickly, the kids' response to this has been they are heavy Uber Eats users. We have had any food around here you can imagine delivered to.
Which is good, that it also supports.
It's not good when they bring it up. The delivery man has to walk into the youth services department with a box of Chinese food, several pizzas, or they have to go downstairs and try to find a kid, because then I have to find X kid who may be in a study room or maybe in a different floor, and it gets interesting.
Okay, well, I just want to thank everybody for participating and putting in their 2 cents. I think for our next meeting, and Beth has some dates for us, we did secure some dates on the calendar, but I think the next meeting, if we want to move forward with how we make our ideas work, how can we make these ideas work, and talk about what our priority list is, as Jay mentioned, like if we're just talking about the footprint, what would the priority list be if we're staying in the footprint? Are we talking about needing more space? Maybe thinking about some goals in regards to your personal priority list. What would be the goals? Is it staying in this facility? Do we need some professional advice perhaps in sectioning off space? Do we want kind of a mock blueprint and play like a puzzle and see what we can do? Let's think about that. What's the best way to get there in terms of what you think are our priorities?
Before I can jump to priorities, I guess I need an understanding of what's the problem we're trying to solve? Because I can't prioritize until I prioritize the problems. Like to me, the bathroom is a bigger problem than, to Jay's point, food or drinks. So if I understand the problem we're trying to solve,
Well,
then
I think we expressed what some problems were.
Right, but before, yeah, I understand that, but it's like before I can even say what the priorities are, I have to understand, like I'd like to, make a list of priorities of what problems are most important to solve. And then go on to, these are the possible solutions.
Right, and I think that's a good way to go for our next meeting is listing priorities, what we think are the priorities. And again, going back to the survey, maybe, taking a look at that survey and seeing, do you still have the same feeling about the way you personally rated them, or has your ideas changed? Are things that you witnessed tonight now absolutely that's not something we want to do, or maybe that is something we want to do? Maybe we take a look at that again and then talk about what our priorities are as a group. I think we need a sense of how we want to move forward.
I don't want to speak for Elizabeth, but I know that I think my goal coming into this was letting you know what I think a lot of these problems are, so that when we come back, now you know what these problems are, at least that I have, and I think Elizabeth spoke a lot on her end as well, give you an idea of what those problems are so you can prioritize.
I'd like to see like summary problem statements listed here before we even get to this bottom. Because I know you want to prioritize solutions, but I want to prioritize the problem statements.
And you don't think you heard that tonight?
I heard it, but if we're going to go through a list and we're going to have how many people here,
So you like want to hear?
I want to hear, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. And my memory is not as good as something succinct and itemized. I mean, these
Okay.
are itemized solutions.
We can document
That would be great.
things we discussed tonight. I can provide that.
I mean, I think, Liz, you can make short problem statements from each of these. Before, we don't have a youth service bathroom. We don't have enough group study space.
But
Our design- and then,
what's
like,
the problem are we really trying to solve with group study space? Are we trying to solve big, what's the need analysis? Are the large rooms scheduled up? Are the little
In
rooms
5
scheduled
minutes, the
up? I
library
mean,
will be closed.
without
and the
understanding
computer
that,
shut
I
down.
can't jump
Please
to
be sure to
this.
check out all materials before leaving the building.
And maybe I'm, looking for, more understanding.
And I think, I took it that the problem is that the group study space we have is not efficiently sized nor efficiently used. And that we need generally more group study space. So sort of those three problem statements, or we encapsulated under
I think
group
that's
study space.
what staff would recommend, just day in, day out, night in, night out. That's what we experience. I don't think we would recommend that just because.
Right, I guess I'm more used to seeing, I hear a lot of anecdotal data. I'm used to seeing more quantified problem statements and less anecdotal data before I make a decision to invest.
Okay, well, what we can do is we can create some statements below all of these, kind of summarizing what staff and others have discussed and experienced here and other places. And then maybe next time we can talk about prioritizing them as a group.
That'd be great, and if we could also compare ourselves to other libraries of our size. That would
Right, I
be
think we
great.
take a lot of things in consideration, comparing ourselves, hearing from our patrons, looking at some of the comments that have been made at Community Engagement Project. All of those things should be taken into account.
Could we, I don't know if it would be necessary maybe for the next meeting, but eventually could we get like a blueprint
Yeah, I'd like that.
of the building? So
I'd
we
like
could,
that.
like you say, play puzzles?
Yeah, play puzzles. Okay,
All right.
I'm
Want to hear
done.
dates?
Dates.
Oh, dates, yeah.
So next date, next strategic plan meeting.
Well, we reserved July 9th, which is a Monday, and then July 25th, which was a Wednesday.
What works best?
Either is fine for me.
Either's fine for me.
25th.
Sorry, what'd you say, Richard?
25th.
Richard said the 25th, okay.
9th or the 25th is fine.
25?
Is there, where, would it be, was there ever a plan to do meetings on July 9th or 25th? It was either or, not and, right?
That's up to you.
No, I mean-
Depending on the availability,
Okay.
it seems like the 25th works for everybody.
And maybe by the 25th, I can have more things to you sooner.
Yeah,
more
or,
information.
once you, again, I don't think you need to spend a lot of time, because today every one of the issues, we had a bigger, more deeper discussion.
Right.
But kind of a recap, probably it's good practice to a very short paragraph, a sentence to say, why we think this is the issue. And then I think if we can give everybody homework, so before you come, just start to rank them. So it's all good to take a look at the reference, because you'll rank them before. So maybe there's a different
Right.
ranking once you have a better appreciation what the problem is. and hopefully we can prioritize the top 3 or 5 and move on to the next focus area.
And there could be solutions like where, just as an example, like, okay, there's the bathroom, lack of a bathroom in youth services and space in youth services appears to be a problem. There might be a way to, you know, kill 2 birds with 1 stone by maybe moving youth services somewhere.
Right, I mean, that is an option.
Yeah, I mean, so, just something like that too, so.
Right. Okay, we need a motion.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
All right, is there a second?
A second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned at
The line